the terms of the U.S.-brokered ceasefire deals, Phase 1. Let's listen into the snippets of the conversation between a released hostage and his mother.
שלי, חיים שלי, אתה אלוף גיבור, כפרה עליך אני, כמה החיות שלך מחכות לראות אותך, ואילנה, חיים שלי ונוני, כל העולם חיים שלי, אתה, בטח, החזירו לי אותו אחרי 4 ימים, אתה לא מבין, טונטון, אתה לא מבין, חיים שלי, מה? כפרה עליך אני, זה החיים שלי, אתה רוצה לשתות, כפרה עליך, בוא כפרה עליך, בוא חיים שלי, אתה בוא כפרה עליך, מה זה?
Hamas has armed a wing says that it will hand over bodies of 4 hostages today. As part of the agreement, the release of 250 Palestinian prisoners serving long and life sentences is now underway, as the release of around 1,968 Palestinian detainees from Gaza held by Israel since the Hamas-led attacks on October 7, 2023. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Daniel Wagner. He's the CEO of Country Risk Solutions, joins us live from Portland, and Sol Sadka. He's a security analyst and author, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you to both our guests for joining us. First, I would like to go to Sol. Sol, how significant is this ceasefire and President Trump's role in brokering this ceasefire? So,
can you hear me?
Yes. Did you
Great.
hear my question? Yeah.
I would say that all the credit has to go to Trump and to Netanyahu in general in brokering the ceasefire. They brought all the parties to the table. The Israeli army softened up Hamas to the point that the other actors in the region, such as Turkey, Qatar, Egypt, and others, all realized that their last chance to get anything out of this situation was to force Hamas to come to the table. And they came to the table not as a partner in this deal. They came to the table as the meal. And as a result, it means that what could soon happen, what we could soon see, is genuine peace breaking out across the Middle East, which is something that is in the interest of Israel, but to a much greater extent in the interest of its neighbors, such as Lebanon and Saudi Arabia. And a lot of the credit, as you correctly point out, has to go to Trump, no question.
Thank you for sharing that. So I would like to get Daniel, our another guest, Daniel's perspective on this as well. Daniel, thank you for joining us. Daniel, Sol has mentioned his perspective on Trump's role, U.S.'s role, and Netanyahu's role in brokering this peace. How do you see it?
Basically, I would agree. I think there's wide consensus on the idea that this was at Trump's initiative and that he's the only one who could really bring Bibi into line. Certainly, President Biden didn't do that. And many people think this has gone on a year longer than it really had to. I would agree with that, maybe even longer than that. I think it's very clear that President Trump wouldn't have bothered to fly to the region and attend this day in person if he didn't believe that this was going to stick, and that if he didn't believe that both parties are interested in making this go away, at least for the time being. The question in my mind is, how long will it go away for? And is the fact that some of the Hamas and related entities still have weapons and are attempting to rearm, does that set the stage for the longer term future? That's certainly a concern in Israel, and I think it will remain a concern because that risk is going to remain.
Yes, Daniel, you've already mentioned my second question, so I would like to go to Sol. Sol, as Daniel has mentioned, yes, this is significant, and probably Trump was sure that this could hold on for some time, but the baseline or the the sticking points between this region or this ceasefire still exists. How long do you think the ceasefire can last for? Do you think it is the, in Trump's term, historic dawn of a new Middle East?
I'm quite certain. Look, the ceasefire with Hamas, like I said before, this is not a ceasefire with Hamas. This is the end of a war against Hamas. Hamas has been reduced to a fraction of what it used to be. And as long as Israel maintains a security perimeter, Hamas has no way of rearming in any significant way, and it has no way of attacking Israeli civilians. And it no longer holds any Israeli civilians. So as far as Israel is concerned, Hamas is a done deal. While there may be hostilities that will flare up again in the future between Hamas and Israel, they will not be anything like they were before. And Hamas is now predominantly a Gazan people problem. For the rest of the region, they no longer pose a problem, including for Israel. And as your previous guest mentioned, I must disagree with him in some regard. It's not that this war could have been wrapped up a year ago. The opportunity was there. The problem was the political will wasn't there. It was not possible at the time to bring Hamas to the table. There was no appetite for it in the Middle East, and the parties that were sponsoring them thought that they could hold out for a better deal. At this point, they realized that a few more weeks or maximum months, Hamas would no longer exist because they were getting very speedily rolled over by the IDF. And so this was their final chance to try and get something out of the war for themselves. And Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey have all walked away with gifts, let's say.
And Daniel, what's your take on that? What do you think about the international, such as the Seoul has already mentioned, but Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar's mediation? What do you think was their role in this? Daniel?
Let me just say first that I think there was a desire on the part of many countries, many governments in the region, and certainly the people of the region, to see a more rapid end to this than ended up happening. I think everyone, including the Palestinian people, of course, and the Israelis, wanted this to end as soon as it possibly could, and not just because of the hostages, just because it was such a horrible situation for so long. I think credit should be given to Turkey, to Egypt, to Qatar for being involved in this process. They played an important role. I do find myself wondering why some of the other powers in the region were not involved in this process. Maybe you could say that would be too many cooks in the kitchen, perhaps. On the other hand, it would have been interesting to see if Saudi Arabia, for example, might have played some role in this process. They see themselves, of course, as a growing and mighty power in the region, and they are. So I'm a little surprised that that didn't happen. I would say, look, at the end of the day, this is what it is. I do agree with Saul that Hamas really realized finally that they had no choice. It was either this or they would be completely pulverized out of existence. And there are many in Israel who think that, in fact, that should have been the case, many around the world, certainly in the States. This leaves a wild card in the room. That's the problem. The fact that Hamas still exists, that some of their leaders still exist, that they still have some arms and are attempting to rearm. And there are some among the Hamas ranks, of course, that don't agree with this peace plan. So I think there's a pretty good chance that there are going to be some wrinkles, and the wrinkles may not be necessarily weeks or months away. They could be here pretty quickly. Let's see.
Yes, we'll be keeping an eye on that. And to both our guests, thank you for joining. And